Yo, 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 what is going on, RoK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. And today we are going to be touching on, I think, one of the most important topics that is just not talked about enough, and that is merging. And I want to touch on everything that really has to do with merging. So we're going to talk about what is merging, why do you do it, what are the benefits of merging, when do you actually want to merge versus not merge? We're going to talk about zone 1 merging, zone 2 merging, zone 3 merging, and then we'll talk about what are some of the long-term effects of merging from how you choose to do it from the beginning or early stages of a kingdom's development. So before we get started into all of that, if you enjoy the content, make sure you sub, like, ring the notification bell, join the Discord. There will be a link to that in the description, pinned comment down below. Okay. So let me start off first with what is merging. Well, merging in short is where you take two or more alliances and you combine them into one, where you're pretty much taking the most active and or the top players from the alliances and you're combining them into one, and then the remaining is being dispersed into the other alliance or other alliances. And the objective here is to try and boost activity, boost social engagement, develop tech faster because you're having more average donations per day. You're building faster because you have a higher amount of players that are able to be online on average throughout a 24-hour period, getting more helps throughout a 24-hour period, so on and so forth. Or I should say people are getting max helps faster. And then from there, right, some of the goals really of what I feel a lot of individuals at the moment view on merging is that it oftentimes is, their go-to option when things are kind of seeming low or seeming down, or thinking that this is the only way to go about doing things to help. Let me correct that first and foremost when I say that if your immediate thought when you are in a pickle, especially if we're talking about from when a kingdom starts up until KVK1, arguably after that, but we're just mainly going to focus on from day one of a kingdom up until KVK1, and you are of the mindset that merging is the go-to option, you are dead wrong. It is actually, if you think about doing merging for the sake of merging, you are really causing your kingdom, you're putting your kingdom in a very detrimental state. And it's not favored. It actually does more harm than it does good. And that's why we're really going to be talking about today on when are the appropriate times and not the appropriate times to actually merge, and why you really want to merge for certain reasons. With that being said, I'll touch more on that once we get towards the end, where I'll probably give you a little super secret pro tip. Okay, let's start off first with zone 1. When you get into a kingdom, and this is why, again, these things oftentimes lead to the bigger pictures. And the bigger picture here is about activity and player retention. So when you're looking to merge in zone 1, you hopefully are doing it in a way where you are not affecting where you're not putting, let me reword that, the top alliances in jeopardy of, and I'll give you, and this is an example, right? You wouldn't want, like, let's say, for example, we're looking at this zone here, or this province in zone 1. And let's say in this province in zone 1, you have 5 alliances that are within the top 10, just to give an extreme example. And it doesn't matter where they're positioned, but you have 5 alliances in the top 10. You most likely would not want to merge those alliances. Any of those alliances in the top 10, because what you're doing is you're eating away at growth potential, which means that it's the idea of that if you have an alliance that's in the top positions on the boards, and you could arguably say top 18, I think top 18, top 20 is probably okay to look at, and you want because again, we have to look at that. We want to have the most amount of activity, we want the most amount of player retention. Therefore, we want the most amount of active alliances to stay as active as long as possible. So you have to factor that in as well when you're considering to do merging, because you want the most amount of an active player base to sustain itself throughout all 3 zones up until you get to zone 3, and more so even up until you get to KVK. And so you can have the most amount of converted players going from the kingdom, the home kingdom, to KVK to actually fight and participate. And so that is how we also have to take that factor and look at when we identify merging opportunities. So in zone 1, you may look, and a good approach here, by just good general rule of thumb, is you want to look at alliances that are not within, ideally, the top 3 alliance power within that province, but more specifically, you want to try and identify alliances that are outside of the top 20 first. That means 21 plus. Sometimes you even maybe want to go farther than that, and really what you want to try and look at first is you want to look at alliances that are 50 plus, and then you work your way down from there. You exhaust all options, and then you go 40 plus, 30 plus, right, so on and so forth. Usually the hard cap you want to try and stop off is still about 20. I would say 21 plus. That's a video probably for another time. For all intents and purposes, when you're operating in provinces, you want to try and have the most amount of alliances active. And this is why I say you want to try and look at identifying the top 3 alliances in each province of Zone 1 to start, and then you look for lower ranked alliances first to try and do merging opportunities with. However, remember, and also keep this in mind, this is outside of doing any internal recruiting that you're doing within the kingdom, which really should be your first and foremost option that you are looking to exercise in order to boost activity or to replenish inactivity. Then you would look towards merging opportunities with lower ranked alliances. Why? So you keep the higher ranked alliances intact with what they already have, which is core activity. They're just looking to fill in remaining spots or even replenish, right, which is more or less the same thing, any of your inactives. But the main reason, and I'll give that tip at the end. So from here, you then would do something simple. I'm going to click on some alliances. I'm going to say, okay, well, this alliance, okay, 2 mil. Well, okay, maybe there's 1 or 2 players in here that we can grab. And sometimes that's what it's going to be. Sometimes you're just going to grab scraps from players here and there. But you'll start off with alliances that maybe don't have a lot of power, don't have a lot of territory. Maybe they just have less territory than you do when you're just starting off. And you'll click on these to see what their power is, click on their members list. You'll see which ones maybe have a decent amount of power based on the date or how long the kingdom has been open for. And you can identify players that, again, are hopefully active. And you would start off by, maybe reaching out to the leadership, R5, maybe you then reach out to some of the R4s. If you don't get anything back where you're reaching out and asking them about merging opportunities, if they're interested in coming on board, how the reasons why it can help them, then if you don't hear back, you would then reach out to the players individually, right? You obviously want to be professional and do your due diligence first, and you kind of want to go through it appropriately, which is leader, officers, and then the member directly. Just because I think it's a lot better of a way to go about doing things. And so that's what you would do. You would try and look internally within your province. You can then also look on the global leaderboards as well for anyone that just is not in an alliance, right? You kind of have to be a little creative when it comes to those things. But then from here, that's what you would do in Zone 1. Then we get to Zone 2, and now you're potentially looking at, it depends obviously on how your kingdom is set up. I'm just letting you know, if you want to have the most amount of activity and the most amount of player retention, this is what you do in order to ensure that. Anything less than you do of this, obviously any kingdom can do. But if you want to have the most amount, this is the best way to go about it. Then when you're looking at Zone 2, you would then look to identify how many alliances you're initially looking to bring into Zone 2, and then you would look at the remaining alliances beyond that are lower ranked than that, and then you would look at those potential merging opportunities. But remember, you also have to make sure that you are counting how many active players you have in your alliance versus how many active players another alliance has, and then you have to do the math and make sure that you're going to be able to fill activity and you're not going to overfill. So you have to really look for appropriate mergers, which is what we talked about in the beginning. So you're not just doing something and then leaving other active players out to dry. That is what we also touched on with that word detrimental, because you don't want to put yourself in a position where you are, for example, you have 100 active players, but you only have 85 capacity. What are you going to do with the other 15, right? Sure, to you it might just be as simple as saying, oh, well, yeah, you guys can just go find another alliance or we'll place you guys here. But what if they don't want to? What if they want to play with the group that maybe they had been playing with already for a while? You may not think that's a big thing, but it is a big thing. That can cause players to stop playing, to migrate out, to feel like they're not cared about anymore. And that all factors into the all-encompassing elephant of player drop-off. Right, that plagues every kingdom, every server, and hits you from every single side imaginable when you are trying to manage and develop a kingdom. So again, this is why you need to look at and for appropriate merging opportunities. And again, this is why if you start, right, for those of you that maybe have already picked up on this and you've already connected the dots, I'll still spell it out. This is why you look at lower ranked alliance merging opportunities. Why? Because a lower ranked alliance means they have less overall active players. So you don't have to worry about doing these medium to large size merges, right? You want to try and identify smaller alliance merges first, and then you kind of work bottom up in that way. And so then you're in zone 2, and there may be times where maybe you have an alliance in the top 10 and you only have half activity, and another alliance close to the top 10 has half activity. You may do that and say, well, cool, now we'll easily boost in to within the top 10 or maybe top 5 through merging, and the numbers make sense where, there's pretty much no inactivity that's there. We're going to get 100%, if not near 100% activity, and any of the farm accounts or whatnot would just go elsewhere. Then you're looking at going from zone 2 to zone 3. Now, zone 3 is going to be a little trickier because usually at this time, you want things to settle. You also may want, and this does loosely apply to zone 2, you may just need to wait for alliances to keep increasing their player capacity, waiting for there to be a higher percentage or a higher amount of inactive players so they can free up enough spots. And sometimes when you're looking for merge opportunities, it might just be a waiting game. But it doesn't mean that you always have to do merges, right? I would rather have 18 healthy active alliances throughout the entire kingdom where all the territory is dispersed from them, and basically working them between zone 3 and zone 2, and avoiding to do merging and then looking to do something like recruitment or finding players through other means rather than always looking to do merging first. Remember, merging is your last resort in every regard. It doesn't matter if you're in zone 1, if you're in zone 2, if you're in zone 3. Merging is what you do when you have exhausted all other options. If you take anything away from this video, take that away. Trust me, it will save you so much time, effort, and just headache from potential future complaints that you will get in your kingdom. And it'll also allow for your kingdom to have a higher percentage chance of staying healthier or just being healthy and then sustaining that activity for a long period of time. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I left out on merging. I guess that was my kind of big pro tip there at the end. Wondering if there's anything I'm missing. Am I missing anything? I'm probably sure I am, but if that's the case, I might have to leave that for another video. Okay. I'm at about 13 minutes now, so I hope you guys enjoyed this coverage of how to look to identify merging opportunities, when you want to do it, what some of the do's and don'ts are, how you can play merging, or what you want to look to when it comes to each of the zones for 1, 2, and 3. I would love to hear your thoughts on anything. If you have done merging before, is what I'm saying making sense? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did you enjoy the detail that I went into on showing people kind of how you would go about merging, professional decorum and steps you would take when it goes to reaching out to alliances with leader, officer, then members, why that's important? Anything and everything I'd love to hear, of course, as usual. And if you have done merging yourself and you resonate with anything that I've touched on here, maybe you just have a different approach, I'd love to hear that too. So let me know, please, in those comments down below. That is it for me. Until next time, I'll catch y'all later.